Yoda hated Dooku's lightsaber, and the reason had nothing to do with the curve of the hilt. It had to do with what the weapon revealed about the student he had spent decades trying to save. Every other lightsaber in the Jedi Temple was straight, simple, built to be humble. Dooku's was the only one designed for a single purpose, fighting another person who carried a blade. It begins on a planet called Sereno, where a boy who would become one of the most dangerous men in the galaxy saw a lightsaber activated for the first time. The Jedi were invited to Sereno for a public festival, a showcase for the Outer Rim packed with traders, weapons dealers, and diplomats across the sector. Yoda, Master Shinobi, and Master Braylon stood on a stage and performed a synchronized lightsaber demonstration for the crowd. A protocol droid watching from the sidelines considered the blade ceremonial, nothing more. A boy named Ramil complained that they were not even fighting. His sister Jenza shushed him. Somewhere in that crowd was another child who had been born on Sereno and given up to the Jedi as an infant. His father, Count Gora, feared and despised Force users and had surrendered the boy willingly. Dooku was back on his home world for the first time and did not yet know any of this. He would only discover the truth because his sister sought him out in secret during the festival. His name was Dooku. He did not think the lightsabers looked ceremonial at all, but the weapon that would later define him did not exist yet. Years later, still an initiate, not yet chosen as anyone's Padawan, Dooku sparred with Jedi Master Lini Costana on the temple's contemplation balcony. Costana was not his teacher. She was something more dangerous, a Jedi who had traveled to the edges of known space, recovering dark side artifacts the Council preferred to forget existed. She believed the Sith were not as gone as everyone wanted to think. Mid-duel, she noticed the fencing angles, the one-handed grip, the duelist instinct already taking shape. She stopped pressing her attack. She had a name for that kind of precision: Darth Sanguis, a Sith swordswoman built for blade-to-blade combat. No Sith by that name had ever existed. Yoda knew it. Costana had invented it as a test, but the instinct she provoked in Dooku was real. Dooku was a child. The first Jedi to comment on his fighting style compared it to a Sith Lord's technique. He carried a standard hilt at that age, the same as every other initiate, but the way he used it was already different. The duel did not end cleanly. Costana goaded him, compared him to a Sith, and questioned whether he could feel the dark side inside himself. Dooku lost control. He hacked at her in a frenzy, driving her back to the edge of the balcony. He could not explain it afterward, only that the rage had taken over and that he could not stop himself. The balcony had gone completely quiet. Every other initiate had stepped back. Yoda arrived and stopped the fight with a single word. Dooku was out of breath, shaking, convinced Costana was a Sith. Yoda's response was the same as always: reach into the Force and feel. Dooku obeyed. He felt nothing dark in Costana at all. The rage had been his own, but the fighting style did not change. Years later, when Dooku set aside his Padawan weapon and built a new lightsaber, one with a curved hilt designed to match the fencing discipline he had been perfecting since childhood, nobody in the temple was surprised, least of all Yoda. Dooku came from the Sereno aristocracy, the son of a count, born into a house that measured its authority and its enemies in centuries. Sereno was not Coruscant. Power there was not debated or shared. It was deeply personal, inherited, and absolute, passed down through bloodlines that predated the Republic itself. His father was obsessed with birthright, inherited status, personal superiority, the expectation of being exceptional. That noble identity was woven into Dooku before the Jedi ever found him. The curved hilt reflected that identity. By the time he became a Jedi Master, his fighting style had hardened into something the rest of the Order barely recognized. Mace Windu privately considered Dooku's approach arcane, a word that means old, forgotten, left behind. The Jedi as a whole had moved on from what Windu saw as thrust and riposte fighting, the front and back fencing discipline that Dooku mastered. They considered it almost irrelevant against the threats of the present galaxy. Dooku held on to it stubbornly. He considered it the purest form of lightsaber combat, not because it was the most practical, but because it required the most precision. The Geonosis duel made the distinction physical. Obi-Wan Kenobi came to Dooku with wide, circular slashes, the standard Jedi approach, built for battlefield range, designed to fight blasters, droids, and large groups. Dooku did not match the energy. He stepped inside every attack with a single precise thrust. He moved on one line, forward and back, his feet shifting to keep him in perfect balance. With a slight reversal of his wrist, he turned Obi-Wan's own momentum against him. Obi-Wan went down twice. Every recovery met the same answer: a single, clean thrust. He fought like a fencer, not a soldier, not a peacekeeper, someone who trains to fight a single opponent carrying a blade. The enemies who carry lightsaber blades in this galaxy are Sith. In the Initiate Tournament, before anyone had chosen Dooku as a Padawan, he already fought that way. In Dooku Jedi Lost, he blocked every blow from his friend Sifo-Dyas with one arm tucked behind his back, eyes closed behind the visor. Classical dueling posture, the stance of a nobleman, not a peacekeeper. He was 16. When Sifo-Dyas fell and lost his lightsaber, Dooku did not claim victory. He used the Force to slide the weapon back into his opponent's hand. Rise, finish the fight properly. He did not just want to win, he wanted to control what winning looked like, a performance of superiority, and he was its director. As a master, Dooku expected the same precision from everyone around him. He distinguished between Muke, a disarming slash to the limb, and a Chomok, a full dismemberment, and corrected students mid-drill if they confused the two. His former Padawan Rael Averross summed it up: always the teacher, always knows best. The part that complicates everything is that Dooku was right. Linnea Costana spent years tracking Sith artifacts across the galaxy. She went where other Jedi refused to go, cataloging what the Council refused to examine: the Bogon Collection, the Temple's own secured vault of darkside relics, objects recovered from ruined Sith temples, abandoned strongholds, and black market raids had doubled in size in recent years. Dealers were selling Sith artifacts faster than the Jedi could recover them. The relics kept multiplying, and the Council kept choosing not to see. If you want to see more videos like this one, a quick subscribe means you will always be first to know. If you love this galaxy as much as we do, hit subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Yoda insisted the Sith were gone. Costana pressed him, warning that reducing the Sith to a footnote might be playing into their hands. Yoda shut the conversation down. He considered prophecy a path to doubt and fear, a doorway to the dark side. The Council's solution was to lock the relics away in the vault, not study them, not prepare for what they might mean. Just lock them away and move on. Then Sifo-Dyas had a Force vision of a planet called Protobala burning, crops catching fire, millions dying, a disaster sweeping across an agricultural world. Dooku asked if they should warn the planet's government. Yoda refused. Visions could mislead. Costana went behind the Council's back and contacted the Baval senator herself. The disaster came true, just as the vision had foretold. Dooku watched every step of it unfold, the warnings, the refusal, the consequences, and tightened his grip on the weapon the Order still considered ceremonial. Dooku absorbed all of this, every failure, the relics, the visions, the refusal to act. On a mission to Asusto, a planet saturated with dark side energy, something in him broke. He and Costana found Abyssin gunrunners, a species known for their regenerative abilities, smuggling illegal nerve disruptors. Dooku attacked. He cut through them and could not stop. By the time Costana and Sifo-Dyas reached the clearing, the smugglers were dead. Dooku stood among the bodies, breathing hard, his blade still humming. Costana ignited her own lightsaber, not to fight an enemy, but because she was afraid of him. His response defined his trajectory. Dooku did not apologize for the killing. He did not mourn the dead. He looked at Sifo-Dyas. This was what they should be doing, not meditating inside temple walls, but restoring balance by whatever means possible. Every warning Dooku had raised turned out to be real, but none of it saved him. The dark side vision on Asusto showed him exactly where he was headed, overlapping voices collapsing his future into a single moment, each one louder than the last. Qui-Gon's voice confirming the existence of a Sith Lord, a council member insisting the Sith had been extinct for a millennium. Then Sidious cutting through everything, claiming him as an apprentice. Then Dooku's own voice, completing the circle, pledging himself to his new master. Yoda saw something long before any of this had happened, and it was never about the lightsaber. When Dooku was still a child, before Costana, before the Sith relics, before any weapon, Yoda already sensed it. After the assembly hall collapsed on Sereno, the confusion inside the boy was impossible to miss. When Yoda chose Dooku as his own Padawan, it was not a reward. The gallery was shocked. The Grand Master rarely took students, and when he did, the choice carried weight across the entire temple. Yoda did not choose the easiest or the most obedient. He chose the one he was most worried about. Then Yoda did something no other master in the temple would have tried. He refused to teach. No instruction, no correction, no acknowledgement that Dooku was even in the room. For nearly a month, Yoda sat in the training garden, meditating, floating, silent. Dooku arrived every day expecting instruction. He ran through lightsaber stances and lifted stones, sculpted dirt into geometric shapes with the Force, and demonstrated techniques he insisted he had already perfected. He shouted, he begged Yoda to watch. Yoda did not open his eyes. Dooku tried to rip the Kukra tree out of the ground, a sacred tree said to be older than Yoda himself. He pulled at its roots with the Force until the branches shook and leaves fell. He could not do it. He collapsed, completely exhausted. Then Yoda opened his eyes. Only then, after Dooku stopped performing, did the real training begin. The lesson was not about the Force. It was about what Dooku reached for when nobody was giving him what he wanted. That instinct never left. Decades later, Dooku stood in the same temple garden with Rael Averross. Lightsaber combat being ceremonial was a pity. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and diplomacy could quickly fail. He did not just want to be ready for a fight, he wanted the fight to matter. He wanted the duel to be the place where truth was proven and superiority confirmed. In Legends, Yoda named it directly. During the Clone Wars, he called Dooku his greatest student, and in the same breath, his greatest failure. In a garden flashback in Dark Rendezvous, pride was not without reason, but not without danger either. The dark side was the mightiest in those who were mightiest themselves. Every year that the hilt grew more refined, every year that Dooku's technique grew more precise, the distance between the lesson Yoda taught and the student Dooku was grew wider. In Legends, Yoda's meditation during the Clone Wars reveal how deeply the failure cut. He sank into the Force and saw past and present at the same time. The boy of 20 and the warlord of 80 existing simultaneously. To Yoda, they had never really been separate. The fracture that sealed Yoda's failure did not happen in public. It happened in a secret that Dooku kept from Yoda for the rest of his life. After the Asusto mission, after the massacre, after the dark side vision, Kastana pulled Dooku aside. Yoda could never know what had happened on that planet. Not the killing, not the loss of control, not the vision. She feared Yoda would shut down her research entirely. Dooku hesitated. Hiding it from his master was wrong. The deception would cost them both. But he agreed. From that moment, there was a room inside Dooku that Yoda could not enter. Yoda, sensing something wrong, but unable to identify it, could only watch as the distance grew. From Dooku's perspective, his master was not just cautious, but complicit in the Order's blindness. From Yoda's perspective, Dooku's growing fixation on threats and confrontation was exactly the trajectory he had feared since Sereno. Both were seeing part of the truth. Neither trusted the other enough to say it. In the canon animated series Tales of the Jedi, that distance becomes physical. After Qui-Gon Jinn's death, Dooku confronted the Council directly, accusing the Jedi of serving corrupt politicians and allowing his own Padawan to die on a mission the Senate should never have authorized. Yoda was in the room. He did not argue. He did not stop Dooku from walking out. Decades of preparation, decades of warnings whispered into the silence between their lessons, and still no way to prevent it. The final break came later when Dooku killed Jedi Master Yaddle after she discovered his secret meetings with Sidious. He buried that act in complete silence, the one thing he can never take back and would never have to explain. That was the room inside Dooku that Yoda could never enter, and now it was sealed for good. The weapon Dooku carried through all of it was the same curved hilt Kastana had compared to a Sith weapon decades earlier. The weapon Yoda could never make him outgrow. In Legends, the night before Dooku left the temple for his first mission, he sat by the ornamental pond with Yoda. He had always wanted to leave, to travel the stars, to see the galaxy. Yet he had loved the temple. The place had been his home. Yoda had been his home. But he worried he would never fit back inside again. Yoda had no answer that Dooku could accept. Years later, during the Clone Wars, Dooku hid a holographic message inside a fallen Jedi's lightsaber, knowing it would be returned to Yoda. It was the only way to reach him without Sidious knowing, and Dooku chose his words carefully. In the recording, he did not threaten or negotiate. The darkness had been growing in the Republic for years, and he had tried to bring the Order with him when he fled. Yoda had refused. Dooku had once called that cowardice, then corruption. Now he was no longer sure. Perhaps Yoda had been right. Perhaps the temple had been the only lantern keeping the darkness at bay, or perhaps the darkness had been inside him all the time. Even then, Yoda hoped. He remembered the boy from Sereno, grave-eyed, old enough to know his mother had given him away, old enough to learn that betrayal was always possible. The Geonosis hangar, thick smoke pouring through the open blast doors, the floor still scorched from blaster fire. Obi-Wan is wounded, Anakin missing an arm. Through the haze, a small, familiar figure walked forward. Dooku recognized the footsteps and stopped. He stood tall and regal, with perfect posture and a graceful gait. Silver hair perfectly trimmed, elegant features framing a piercing gaze. Nothing less would ever suit this one. Yoda recognized the weapon. 2 words passed between them, a name and a title, the last trace of what they had once been to each other. Dooku raised his lightsaber to his face, shut down the blade, and snapped it to the side in a formal salute. The same curved hilt, that familiar fencing discipline, the same posture, one arm behind his back, feet positioned for a single clean line of attack. The only difference was the color of the blade. It became red. Yoda won the duel, but he never called it a victory. To him, the shroud of the dark side had fallen over everything, and the Clone Wars had only just begun. In Legends, Yoda's meditation afterwards collapsed 60 years into a single image. Alone in the temple, the corridors empty, the training room silent, war pressing against every wall, surrounded by the weight of a conflict that had already claimed too many Jedi. He saw the hiss and flash of humming lightsabers, darkly beautiful, like dragonflies, beside the memory of Dooku as a boy of 20, still holding the same weapon, fighting the same stance, waiting for the same fight. The boy and the Sith Lord had always been holding the very same blade. Yoda just could not make himself believe it until the blade turned red. The Order called the weapon ceremonial. It locked the relics away, dismissed the visions, insisted the Sith were gone, and never once considered the one thing Yoda feared most, that a Jedi had built a lightsaber for an enemy the Order insisted did not exist, and that the blade had been right all along. The answer was standing in a Geonosis hangar, blade red, waiting for his old master to arrive. Dooku's story was only the clearest proof of a habit the Jedi Council never broke. Long before Sereno, and long after Geonosis, warnings kept arriving in different voices, and the Council kept deciding which ones were worth hearing. But the Council's blindness did not start with Dooku. It started decades earlier, with a warning the Order buried so deep that even its own historians stopped looking for it. So watch this video to find out.